anything, just a bit of text to send back, and all it's done is display it. This just demonstrates the actual process of going off, getting it, and bringing it back through for it. You'll want to sort of test some of these things. There are various libraries to help you with it. We'll look at them in the sort of jQuery. You definitely want to test it on multiple browsers, because we saw with some of the XSLT browsers react differently to it. So make sure you try it out on a range of ones, your current versions of IE, current Firefox, all that sort of thing for it. And some sort of debugging technique for it. We'll have a look at both something called Firebug and inbuilt debuggers. Now that particular one there, when it got its data, yes, it only sent back some sort of random message coming through with it. You could have hard-coded that alert in your JavaScript. What we really want is that it's running some servlet or some JSP page over on the browser and dealing with something like that over there. So there's some design deficiencies really with that first demo. It was always the same data coming back. It was hard-coded in the JavaScript. It always went just to that same message one. The JavaScript was held in the same folder as the HTML. We normally put it in a different folder. There was no style sheet in there. It was just the raw parts to it. So there would be parts where you probably where you put the JavaScript in a separate sort of folder to it. We'll quick look at that in a second. But the improvements here, when you're getting a request, will show going to a JSP page, same thing as going to a servlet page. You get the address of it from a variable instead of hard coding it, and the JavaScript from a centralized directory. So some of the code won't change. Getting a request object, that's the same. What we're going to have here, the previous one, flip very quickly back to it, the previous one, the send request, it always went to message data. So what we could do is pass a parameter in and say send request and send it to here, and you just use that variable inside. So there's a second version of that. Ajax alert says give me the address and can you just go to that address. So that address you'll be passing in the address of some sort of server-side stuff, and again, whatever the server sends, we're just going to display in an alert box for it. And here, ideally, we want the server to have said, yes, everything's okay. You want the server to have said that the status of that generation was code 200, which is all's good, not page not found or anything like that. So we put an extra and in there. So we get a bit extra there. This is the next JavaScript version, ajaxutils.js, and we'll build up a library slowly of these. There's only 3 functions in this so far. The only one that really changed here was Ajax alert, passing in an addressing. So how you trigger it in the HTML, well, one, we say where the source is. It's just in some centralized scripts folder there for it. And our on-click, we're invoking Ajax alert, but this time we're passing a parameter. Ajax alert, and what's the name on the server of the code to run? Showtime.jsp. Something that just sort of displays the time for it. So all put together, perhaps with the style sheet in there, you get your HTML put in. And as I say, we'll have a look at this in the lab. Showtime there, the JSP just generates a date, so that when you run it, oh, I don't want the CSS. When you click on show server time, yeah, you get the current server time, and every time you run it, you'll get a different, you might expect a different sort of time for it. Finally, I say we'll progress a bit further in the lab. We do get a bit of problems with JSP, particularly about caching and things. We need to perhaps send some headers to say don't store the most recent version. Browsers often try to be clever and say you've been off and got to this page once, and I've already got the data that it sent back. So I'm just going to use that. And it's caching away previous previous values. So ideally you should send some sort of cache control headers saying don't cache these values for it. The data might not have been formatted, may not be in a specific format. In general, JSP is the wrong technology to use to invoke. It's initially quite attractive because it's easy. But in general, we use a servlet. So the same steps again, but instead of request to a JSP, we request it to a servlet. Same bit of JavaScript there, it's still an address. So in this case, we're invoking showtime over on the server, which is a servlet to run. And our servlet called showtime sets the headers for cache control, for it to tell the browser, look, when I send you this data back, don't cache it. And the next time they request it, come back and ask me. And now it generates a date and it prints out to its response whatever message. Now using this, you've already got enough now to be able to, whatever's inside your servlet, to go off and do something and send the result back. What we really need to concentrate on is that not really going to concentrate on the server side, we're going to concentrate on the client side about extracting the data. Your server is going to create the data and send it back as JSON or XML or some sort of structured string to it, and then we'll show how to get the other part out of it in follow-ups. So in the lab, we'll sort of start to work on that. The next part that I want to work with is building up the HTML inside your script, and why you shouldn't do it in the servlet side. Basically involves, rather like you did with the XML, you take a particular, you find an element by an ID, and then you just say, set its inner HTML to be this value, and build it up inside your JavaScript. Anyway, I'll point to that in the labs, so I think we'll sort of do more on that in the labs. We'll leave it there for this week, and I shall see some of you tomorrow. If the register can come down to get people to, if you missed it, perhaps just sort of sign at the front here.